Hey, Christian Metal Group. We're here. We have Jay, one of the moderators, and I'm one of the admins for the group. And we are doing one of our ministry partner interviews with the All Consuming Podcast. And we have Tyler and Gary on here who run that. So,
Yeah.
how are y'all doing today?
So good.
Yeah, doing great, man.
Yeah. How's the weather in Washington State?
Surprisingly kind of cold.
Dude, yeah, it was like 70 today was the high here.
It was like 64 here and really windy.
Wow. Oh, awesome. So let's start back in the beginning, and we'll start with Tyler, since I hear he runs the podcast or
something. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you choosing me because Gary is the face usually when we do this. So this is an honor and a privilege, and I'll never let him forget about it.
Is it the beard? Is that why?
The beard commands respect. Like, let's be real. Look at that thing.
Awesome.
Oh, stop it.
Tyler, we'll start with you. Tell us your faith journey and how you grew up.
Yeah, so for me, I didn't grow up in the church. Maybe every once in a while we'd go to church when I was a kid, like for Christmas or Easter or whatever, but never really grew up in the church. And then like as I got to high school, I drifted more towards like atheism and became what I would describe as like a pretty militant atheist. Any of my friends at school or like my now wife, she was my girlfriend in high school. My now wife, her friends, like anytime they were Christians and I knew, I was like, man, I'm going to hopefully meet with them and make them cry or question their faith, which like looking back, man, it's like crazy to even think, but that was me. And that's what I kind of like live for. And so in some of these meetings with friends, like I'd, look at coming up with notes to try and make them question their faith. Like, hey, have you ever heard of carbon dating? You have? How do you still believe in Jesus? Or like, you really think that somebody could live in the belly of a whale for 3 days? Really? And you believe? So I was just like this pompous jerk, and so this one guy, he decided he wanted to talk to me, and I was stoked. I was like, yeah, let's do it because I'm going to win this debate. And so he agreed to meet me at my apartment and we were going to talk. And before he even made it to my apartment, like in that moment, like I can't even really like describe what it was other than God. Every question and doubt I ever had about Christianity and Jesus, it was gone. And a few minutes later, like he knocks on the door expecting to debate this atheist, and I'm just crying. And
so that happened before he even got there.
Before he even made it to the house.
Amazing.
And it was awesome. And so we talked through that night, and I was like, it was weird, I was like, I'm a Christian, like I'm a Christian, and so like just like called my wife. I was married for like, whatever, she was working. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm a Christian now, like I think it was crazy. Like
what was her reaction to that?
Pretty shocked, and I think there was like kind of this push towards it. Like my wife she grew up in the church. And at this point, she was like hanging out with more people that were Christian, and she would call herself a Christian at the time, but definitely kind of not necessarily be dedicated to life, but like became more serious in her faith during these times, but was somehow married to an atheist, which is crazy. But like, as anybody does, like once this happened, you have to celebrate like a big event. We just went to like Denny's, and it was like 9 p.m., and talked to them. I still remember to this day. But since then, since that like divine intervention, since God saved me, like it's been, 16 years, and I've started ministries and served in the church and been just serving Jesus with my life since that moment. And it's a really awesome testimony to be able to share and say like, man, if God can save someone like me, like no one's out of reach. So,
Right.
Sounds like you had a wife that was praying for you.
oh, absolutely, guaranteed, yeah, for sure.
Well, my story is not as flashy as Tyler's. I grew up in a Christian home, went to church every Sunday, and every church event that happened, my family was there. I grew up in like I was gonna say sheltered, but maybe that's not the right word. Protected. I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music. So all the music I had growing up was either like CCM or like something my dad got, which he was into metal too, but he wanted to raise us on just Christian influence. So he looked for the Christian metal bands, and that started back from like Larry Norman, which is like the '60s, and he would find everything from then till now. But and I grew up in like a Pentecostal home, and now I go to more of a Reformed church, Reformed theologically. So I feel like I've heard the spectrum of opinions from everyone's faith and different theological views. But I probably I was one of those kids at church camp that was like they would do an altar call, and every time I want to be saved, make sure I'm on the list. But I wouldn't say I was saved, or at least I didn't make a conscious decision until I was a junior in high school when I got baptized. And I think from that point on is when I made that public statement, that declaration of faith. That's when I started taking my Christianity seriously and actually, read my Bible and paid attention to things and not just like followed all the kids at church and did what my parents told me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's valid. Well, cool. So we talked about your conversion to Christianity or embracing Christianity. Let's talk about metal. And I know you just expounded on it a little bit as far as your upbringing, but let's go deeper into metal. Like, what drew you to metal? Why are you metalheads?
For sure. So unlike Gary, right? Like, so when I was young, I didn't listen to Christian music at all. It was only secular, right? Like I wasn't in search of that. And so moving to like, when you're young, you kind of just listen to what your parents listen to, and then you branch out, or whatever. And so I think like middle school, I started listening to like pop punk, like Blink-182, and then moved like progressively like heavier, right, as I went on. System of a Down, Slipknot, Korn, all that new metal stuff I was like digging so much, and then I went to, in high school, I went to Warped Tour like for 2 straight years. And in Warped Tour, you have this variety. You have like the pop punk, you have like the rock, and then you have like this kind of metal, like hardcore, heavy metal genres. And so I went really in my mind for like the emo pop punk stuff, right? And what I heard was bands like As Lay Dying, Killswitch Engage, and it changed. Really, I was drawn to that style of metal, the heaviness of it, the being in the middle of a mosh pit during a breakdown. Like I enjoyed that, and so it was really, really awesome to get to experience that, because at that point I didn't really even know that music existed, if that makes sense. Right? Yeah. Like, yeah. So that was my journey into what I listen to now.
What was your the 2 years you went for Warped Tour? What were your top 1 or 2 bands each year that you stood out to you?
Oh, funny enough, even though I wasn't a Christian at the time, Reliant K was there, and they were so sick.
Wow, I've seen them.
Yeah. But I say As Lay Dying like has left a huge impact. Killswitch Engage, August Burns Red. I saw them at Warped Tour, and that was really crazy. And now I've seen August Burns Red. Gary and I both say this all the time. We've seen them 7 or 8 times. They have to be our favorite band. Like
I have never seen them, but I will tell you, I have their Sleigh Ride Christmas album.
Oh yeah,
they play my favorite version of Carol the Bells. Like
so good
of all time.
Oh yeah,
so good.
So elite.
Every year,
it's my favorite holiday album.
It's so good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna start playing it here at church, like when people are coming in.
Let's
Yeah, I want you to
go. Yeah.
yeah, record that for me. Let me know how that goes.
Mm.
Yes, yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah.
So for me then.
yes, absolutely.
So yeah, as I said, I kind of grew up in a Christian home. My dad like selected all the Christian rock and metal and stuff. So I grew up listening to a lot of his music, which would be like Bride and Striper and Blood Good and White Cross and even Whiteheart and Petra, all these like older big names, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that stuck out to me were probably the ones that are kind of still around, like Disciple and stuff,
Yeah.
Project 86. But as I was getting older and I was starting to be able to pick my own music, I guess you could say, and Tooth and Nail and Solid State were pretty big at the time, and they were in all those Christian bookstores. So my parents were just like, "This is good for our kids. It's Christian. We'll buy it. Gary can listen to it." And I started off kind of on the rock scene, maybe new metal, whatever you want to call TFK, in 2000.
Yeah.
Rapcore.
Like hard,
Yeah.
hard rock. Like that was like
Yeah.
modern hard rock. How about that?
Yeah.
It wasn't like glam rock. It was like
Yeah,
modern.
I mean, and it was that like, Project 86 and Blindside and like that,
Yeah.
not quite screaming, but like we're getting pretty close.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I started seeing a common name on a lot of albums featured on songs, like even Cutlass featured Ryan Clark. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I
Right.
like his screaming, I like his singing. So yeah, Demon Hunter. My dad bought a Demon Hunter album, and I was like, "This is the guy. This has to be good." And it was just straight screaming on their first album, and I'm like, I just didn't like it. I like the music, and I was like, if they would just do this music the whole time and sing to it, I would like it so much more. But now I'm the other way around, and it's like, why are they singing so much in this song?
Yeah.
I love it.
So yeah, and then I went from that to Haste Today and on to today with just lots of different choices like that. But and it's all been Christian. Like I did, when I got to college, I was free. I could buy whatever music I wanted. I tried like Linkin Park and some other like very popular stuff at the time, and I was like, it's great. I liked it. Right, I listened to it a lot, but it didn't keep me drawn back to it. Or I didn't have like an emotional connection, and I think it's because of the faith aspect of the music that I like.
Right.
There's a lot more sentimental, emotional, spiritual value in the music that is about God, or even just with a Christian worldview, having that lens on lyrics. Even if it's not about Jesus, I'd much rather hear a Christian's perspective on life than someone who's very against God.
Right, of course.
Like Tyler.
Yeah. Like me.
Formerly Tyler.
Formerly.
Yeah, formerly
So if you're a fan, so you are a fan of him and his artwork and everything too?
Yeah, Ryan Clark. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you familiar with Training for Utopia?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. They're actually playing at Furnace Fest this year, which
and I will be there, and I will be watching
nice.
them.
I plan to be there also. It's going down.
Oh, nice. Y'all got to meet up.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
I am not going to be able to make it to that one.
No.
I'm going to Immortal Fest though.
All right,
that's cool.
Ohio, yeah.
I can only take off on one Sunday, so I have to do Furnace Fest.
Okay. I see right there behind you, Gary, I see one of my favorite albums of Project 86, Drawing Black Lines.
Drawing Black Lines, yeah.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
I just got to tell a story. You're talking about Project 86. I've seen them at least 15 times.
Ooh.
And one of my favorite bands, and I pre-ordered. I'm waiting on their new album to come and all that. I crowdfunded it.
Same.
But I saw them at I think Carowinds when they had like Christian Music Day, and the drummer broke 2 snare heads in 5 minutes. He was hitting it so hard. It was amazing.
Nice.
That's cool.
So I imagine y'all go to concerts often or when you can. So name just over the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years or something. Tyler, what's been a couple of your favorite concerts, bands that you've seen live?
Well, Gary and I first really met when we were in college at our campus ministry, Chi Alpha. And what we bonded over was actually Haste Today.
Okay.
We were kind of like, at this point, like people that knew us, like we're like, oh, Tyler, have you met Gary? Oh, Gary, have you met Tyler? So they were kind of like courting us to be friends. It was like this weird,
Tyler's a pretty great guy.
you know, you should
Hang
give him
out
a
with him.
chance. And so and he did. So I'm walking home from class one day, and it's almost out of a movie. Like you can't even like explain it. Gary pulls over in his Jeep, right? Just like skids over to the side of the road, rolls down his window. Haste Today is blaring out, right? Off of When Everything Falls or Burning Bridges, the old you know. And he looks at me, kind of like hands still on the steering wheel, gives me one of those and says, "You want to ride?" Like,
I wished it was that cool.
that's what I remember, dude. That's what I
That's
remember.
so awesome.
And so I jumped in, and like he drove me, and the walk from the class to my apartment was like less than a quarter of a mile. So it was about a 5-second drive.
I saved him 5
Um,
seconds.
But you know what? Like it was that like action of like, hey, you know, let's be friends. I'm gonna pick you up. And ever since then, like we've been going to shows together. So my favorite show, especially with Gary, was the Haste Today farewell tour.
Oh, wow.
And we went to Portland, which is a little extra drive for us. I don't know why we did that. Went to Portland, and
It was the closest venue. They weren't even hitting Seattle, I don't think.
they weren't hitting Seattle, yeah. And it was an amazing show. The Chariot, Plea for Purging,
Oh wow.
Children, My Bride. Is that it?
That's it.
And then Haste Today, and it was so cool. It was so fun.
Yeah,
Something
man.
I'll remember forever. So Haste Today was awesome, and they're also Furnace Fest. They're coming back.
Oh nice. My Children, My Bride just played locally here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know that
Nice.
they were still touring.
Wow.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
played at Furnace Fest last year, and
Oh,
they
that
said
must be
they're
why.
doing a couple more runs of a tour. So
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Gary?
Yeah.
What?
So for me, I've been trying to think of what to pick because I knew Tyler would pick that one. I don't know. There's a few. I mean, Furnace Fest is amazing, and I feel like it's cheating saying a festival because it's like, you know, a ton of bands that.
Well,
it's
but
like-
you were there though.
I was there last year, and I wasn't gonna go because it's like it's a long ways away from Washington, and it's really rough. Like telling my wife, "See ya, I'm gonna go listen to music for 3
Right.
days. Good luck with the kids."
Right?
But she loves me and she lets me do it.
Yes.
Uh,
I feel you. on
so
that.
but the thing that kicked it over last year was Blindside.
Oh,
I
man.
love that album Silence, and they played
Yes.
it front to back, and I was like,
Um,
how I may never get to see this again. Like it's a
Right,
bucket
right,
list
right,
item.
right.
Like I need to do it. No real excuse for that this year. I mean, X-Toll's going, that'll be cool. They haven't been in the States in like 19 years,
Right.
but
Yeah,
they
that's
aren't
gonna
like
be amazing.
yeah, they're not big on my list, but I'll definitely see them.
Yeah.
favorite band.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you won't regret seeing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them. Dang, I know I've seen them at least maybe 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
See, that's one band I've never got to see them or Blindside. So
Mhm.
sad.
And you won't see them this time because you won't be there.
Right?
I'll videotape it for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Uh,
Videotape it. Yeah, with like literal videotape.
I have a lot of some friends that went last year, and one of the local bands from here played Stretch
Mhm.
Armstrong.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Man,
They play like every year.
Yeah, well, they killed it. I saw them after when they came back. They did a show here locally, and it was one of the best shows I had seen in a long time. Like
Hmm.
the crowd surfing was just, I mean, it was almost everybody was crowd surfing,
That's
and,
cool.
and people that shouldn't be. Some of them.
Yeah, another show that really stuck out. So we have a venue here in Spokane called the Knitting Factory, and it's kind of like the main, you know, for metalcore and like our genre of music, it's like the main house for it. At least for bigger names. And August Burns Red, man, every time they come anywhere near, they go here. And it's
Oh, wow.
awesome that they stop here and then in Seattle, because most people are like, Seattle's a one-stop state. And it's like there's a whole eastern side that pulls all of Idaho. But anyway, they always come, so we always see them. But one of my favorite concerts there was when Fit for a King played there right after Dark Skies came out.
Okay.
And I don't remember who opened for them. I want to say it was either like Silent Planet or like, oh no, it was Crystal Lake. from
Oh yeah,
from Tokyo.
Japanese metalcore.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
and just the sound and like the thickness of like Fit for a King's music, like I don't they were heavier than August Burns Red, like physically, because
Mm.
you could just feel the bass and stuff.
Yeah,
And it was just a super amazing show. I've seen Fit for a King a few times after that, and I feel like it hasn't lived up to that
dude.
original, hit.
Yeah, like right after that too. After Fit for King was done, I looked at Gary and I was like, "Dude, is that the heaviest band we've ever seen?" And he's like, "We've seen Impending Doom, bro." Like,
Oh,
no, you know,
Pay
like,
attention.
but
oh, that
it felt like it.
Yeah.
Impending Doom's on my wish list for sure. So
Oh,
was the
they're good.
Japanese band, were they a faith-based band?
No.
No, they're not. No.
Okay, there is one literally that we know of, one Christian metal Japanese band, Amari Tones. They're pretty
Oh,
good
yeah.
too. They're not like heavy metal. They're rocker. I
yeah,
guess
Yeah.
between hard rock and heavy metal.
sure.
But yeah, only one I've ever found. So I was just curious about that.
I
Interesting.
think I know of a couple.
Christian Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gary is what I call my Spotify. Bro hasn't heard a band. Like you could never say a band and he hasn't heard it. It's crazy, man.
Hey, it's happened. Not that good.
Oh,
I
dude.
could probably find you something.
You send it to me if you do, because I'm unaware of it.
Yeah, there's guys on our Discord server that are always like random Christian bands from random countries. Like, check these out. And I'm like, what are these guys? But
Awesome.
yeah, there's been a few from Japan on there, so I'll
Nice.
find something.
Pretty cool. So yeah, let's talk about the podcast overall. First of all, why the name? What's getting consumed? I guess everything's getting consumed. It's all consuming. But let's talk about the name, and then also what was the goal of the podcast?
Mm.
Like, what made you all just be like, yeah, we'll just do this, and also with the focus on metal, Christian metal. So let's just dive into that.
I'll start with the name. So if you saw the names we were choosing or the list of
The
like what should
potential-
we call our podcast, they're bad. It was like Bibles and blast beats. No, okay, what or whatever, just like some wild stuff. And
Somebody's gonna steal that now.
yeah, that's going to be the next podcast.
Yeah, right.
So there's this song that we both really liked from War of Ages called
War of
All
Ages.
Consuming Fire.
Okay.
All Consuming Fire, and then Leroy screams burn, like, and so we kind of sort of ripped that off, but we also, like, part of the idea is like we want to be able to cover all types of music. Now we generally dabble in or stay in what we like right now, but like we're not limited to just metalcore or deathcore or whatever. That was kind of most of the reason we really liked it, and it sounded good. ACP is a great little like
Acronym.
acronym, and so we've been able to use that quite a bit. It just was the best of what we had too,
Yeah, it was like we wanted to do a play on like hymnal songs too, where we just take out a word and put in podcast.
Yeah, that was true. What was one of
Dude,
them? Oh
I
my
don't
gosh.
remember. I don't remember. They were hilarious, and that was why we didn't choose them.
I had so
but-
that song was my ringtone for a couple years. So
Oh, yeah.
I love that's one of my favorites for there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
for
obviously
sure.
a reference to God.
Right.
It's kind of a Christian.
Yeah.
reference, but yeah, and I know some people are like all consuming podcasts. So what, you guys talk about movies too? Do you guys talk about? It's like, no, just kind of Christian.
But we
like,
left the door open in case we want to.
who knows?
Yeah.
And I think the goal, like from the beginning, it was during the pandemic, right? And like, I don't want to say everyone was starting a podcast, but like it felt like the right thing to do. And Gary was like, "Hey, you want to start a podcast?" And
No, so I was on like a road trip or something with my family, and we were like driving back over like the pass over Idaho. We were like in Yellowstone or something, and I was just like listening to music. And every once in a while, Tyler would come over, and his family would come over to our house or vice versa, and we would stay up till like 2 a.m. just talking about music. And it's like we'll talk about like concerts we went to, and we're like, remember that guy? Remember when this person did that in the pit? And it's just like till 2 a.m. And I was like, we should record this, like, because there's no way I'm gonna remember this, and there's no way I'm gonna be able to tell my kids this story when they're old enough.
yeah,
And so when I was driving back over the pass, and everyone in my car was asleep, and I was listening to like Close Your Eyes or something, And I was like, man, I'd love to just talk to about this album with Tyler, like, and record it. And so when my wife woke up, I was like, hey, text Tyler and tell him I want to start a podcast on Christian metal. And Tyler's like, let's do it. Didn't even ask a question. He's just like, let's do it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the origin of how it started. And I think it took several months after that of like, you know, who's going to listen to us and our wives. Like,
It's been around for 3 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started in September 2020. So,
and like the amount of, and it's cool. Like, and we were going to definitely like the Christian metal scene. Like that's where we wanted to focus. Like that's been such a passion for us since we met. Right. And so like since that, you know, we started this, and a lot of our conversation on our podcast, we dive into lyrics. We're sort of like, we didn't want to necessarily be like review guys.
yeah,
That's kind of what we do. We deep dive into lyrics and just talk about whatever it means. And so we have a lot of faith-based conversation, like a ton, in-depth stuff that sometimes like Gary doesn't agree upon. I don't agree. And so I think that's also like what we do is we talk it out on there. And I think a lot of people identify with that, and the responses we've had, we could never imagine the day we started our podcast, like the people that have reached out or been a part of our community, the way the platform we now have to share the gospel is pretty cool.
It's awesome. So I got a movie idea for you.
Oh,
What Christian metal bands would be the score for Lord of the Rings? See, there you go.
Becoming the Archetype.
I was gonna say Becoming the Archetype. I think we literally talked about this.
Well, you got 3 hours. You got 9 hours of movie for 3 movies, so you're gonna have to come up with more than that.
True. That's good. That's good.
You got what songs will fit in what scenes? That would be a lot of work.
That's true. That's true.
So I have been listening to your podcast, and just for my personality, when I start a podcast, I always got to start at the first one. So,
oh boy,
I'm sorry. Our first one,
sorry, dude, bro.
Our first like 10 are bad, but
I just now I am on the Christmas special 2022. So I still got 5 podcasts to catch up to.
You're doing a lot of listening.
Yes, well, I have 20 to 40 on a rotation, and I go through every episode, so it takes a while. Sometimes that's just my how I operate and do my playlist when I'm not listening to records or cassettes. So
sure,
I do it all.
Wow.
But I know I'm looking forward to hearing the Holy Name. That's one of the newer bands that I like a lot. I'm looking forward to that. So I noticed y'all. So you do you break down albums. You go through the entire albums, but you've also had a few interviews and stuff. So tell me, how does that come about? Like, why did you choose to just do album versus interviews, and how does the interview come about?
So I think we've only done like one band interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was Idle Threat, right?
Yep.
We did their EP because I saw they got signed to Tooth and Nail. I listened to it and I'm like, Tyler, listen to this. It's amazing.
Changed our lives for a while. Like that was
it was great.
So good.
And so they reached out to us and said, thanks a lot for all the kind words and all this. And they're like, we have a new album coming out. Do you want to listen to it right now? But you have to interview us.
Oh,
yeah. And we're like, deal, let's do it.
Yeah.
So, but aside,
yeah.
So aside from that one, the other interviews have just kind of been our Christmas episode. I think our one last year, we only interviewed bands.
Yeah.
So a couple of bands from our Discord server hopped on and we did that. And before that, I think it was just like listeners, stuff like that. So just like this one, interviews are hard to schedule. Tyler and I we have full-time jobs and we have kids and we're
Pacific on time zone too.
We're on the best coast. So everyone else is going to bed when we're ready to record.
Yeah.
And that's a hard part of doing interviews.
Yeah.
But we've done a mixtape type episode that's like just singles.
Yeah.
We just picked random songs and we almost did it again recently. And I mean, those ones are fun, but I think there's some less meat. They're probably more lighthearted. But I don't know. We just like talking about albums. We
Mhm.
used to, so I think where you're at, we did like entire albums, but man, that's so much work.
Yeah.
Like every song, especially ones you don't want to talk about.
That's always a lot of work.
Yeah.
Something
Like
like
opening a can of worms. But
Yeah. And I think part of it too, like we've always like, I mean, we didn't even know like what was gonna happen like the first few episodes. And then there's like all these people that interact with us every day on Discord or our thousands or whatever followers now we have on Instagram, and they message us and comment on stuff. And so we've always been kind of like community, like how can we interact with them more? Well, let's bring some people on the podcast, and let's do that type of stuff. And so that's been pretty cool. It's always harder to schedule, but I feel like we always say this, like Gary and I, we feel like what we have is us, our relationship, and
we have
like
each other.
we have
Aw.
each and that's like what we're best at is like let's talk together about an album, and we feel like that's what we're most comfortable with, and there's plenty of music coming out to continue to do.
But you really get to know that album that way too.
Dude, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's what we do. Like our Meadows episode, which was a few episodes ago, they're an awesome band, but like their album was a straight up concept album where they told the story. And like we listened to the whole thing,
When
just
it came
without
out.
when it came out, and we were like stoked about it and really had no idea the amount of effort they put into telling this story. And then we do an episode on it, and it's like that's one of the most like amazing concept albums we've ever heard.
Yep.
And it was so great, and it's Jesus centered, and it's like, man, this is phenomenal. And so we give that extra appreciation of albums for sure by doing it that way.
Very cool. Awesome. How often do you all record?
We do like monthly episodes, but like we record, probably like once every 3 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
We drop monthly episodes. We do like a bonus episode now, as of like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Where any song we don't talk about on the episode, we record it and drop it for our patrons on Patreon.
Mhm.
And so that's like another recording session. But it's their seasons. Like we both get really busy and we have to like say sorry, we're gonna be late this month,
Right.
But and sometimes we're like every 2 weeks, let's go, boom, 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 spit them out. But
Yeah.
Dang, here's my other question. Here's the question I was going to ask at first, and that is, as far as styles of music, I know you all talked about metalcore and deathcore, but what's your criteria for music to be played on the show? What's the lightest that you'll play? What's the heaviest you'll play? Also,
That's a good question. I think for like, so we've got like two different things. Like, so the heaviness of it, I think we've dabbled in less heavier stuff, which is totally fine. Plead the Widow's Cause is a great example. I don't know if you guys have heard them. Super awesome, spirit filled, like
Cool shirt, dude.
post-hardcore. I'm also wearing their shirt.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like post-hardcore. There's definitely some aggressive like style lyrics, but I mean it's definitely not as heavy. And then we've done Impending Doom. So like we definitely have the spectrum of that. But the other piece is like, okay, so Christian bands. What's the criteria for a Christian band? And that's something we're still working through. Like, what are they Christians in a band, or is it a Christian band? Are we Christians in a podcast, or is this a Christian podcast? Like that's what we just keep asking. Like, I don't know.
Discussion, right?
It's a big
Yeah.
discussion in our group. I mean, as long as the group has been going on, I've been a part of the group. I probably became a member a year in of the group being a group, maybe even less than that. And I mean, at least a couple times a week. It's just consistently.
Yeah.
Christians in a band versus a Christian band.
Yeah.
Somewhere always has the question.
I mean, the Christian metal group's been around for over 15 years, and it
Right.
never ceases to come up.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I just scroll on past it because I'm not going to engage. that.
Sometimes I dabble in the comments and I'll like a couple of them and then just I'm a lurker in the group. I don't post a lot of stuff. Yeah, that's a hard question, and we've always struggled with that. Like, what's the lightest we would go? What's not? And I think our ultimate decisions are like, do we both like it?
Yeah.
or do we think the other one needs to like it? Which
Yes,
we've
yeah.
done that a few times. And I don't know. I don't know how light we'd ever go. I could see us doing a rock. I mean, I could go rock, Relient K, like, pop punk.
Yeah.
But like the Christian part, that's the tough one, right? We did an Under Oath episode, and boy,
And
it took
Gideon.
and Gideon. We got a lot of flack
boy.
from both of those,
Well,
right?
Really?
Yeah, people.
Yeah.
Some response. Now it's very few. But
Yeah,
we do get some responses of like,
they're just like, they're not a Christian
Yeah.
anymore, and it's like,
Yes,
if you
we
listen
know.
to the episode, we clearly said that. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, now you're asking people to listen. You're
yeah,
asking.
yeah.
Too much, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what we would ever do. I'd kind of like to do like a couple secular albums, just to like have our opinions as Christians on whether
Yeah.
we agree, like the lyricism, and like, is this okay to listen to if the people in the band aren't Christian? But I don't know. It's kind of like we get to do whatever we want. It's our podcast.
yeah,
What's the right way to go? But at the same time, we don't want to like make our listeners angry or alienate people or offend
yeah,
someone.
exactly.
But
So, are you the only two that work on your podcast? Do you have anybody else behind the scenes, or what's your process with that?
Oh, yeah.
So, go for it, Gary.
I was just gonna say it is just the two of us. We have like volunteer moderators on our Discord server. And then one of my family, I'll say family friend, but friend from college. She's the one that made our logo for us and got us going with that. So shout out to Becca. Thanks a lot for that.
Yeah,
But yeah, we do all of our own stuff.
it's like we record together, but then a few nights a week I just watch Gary edit, like on from our own houses or just on Discord or whatever, and he's editing on the screen and I watch him. And so I don't have a lot of I don't even know, like, this is what people ask me, like everyone now that I'm in a podcast want me to start a podcast with them. I don't even know if I could edit a podcast right now, right? Like the way that Gary does, I just watch him and be like, take that out, turn that up, or whatever.
So I was like, I coughed there, and I'm like, was that
Yeah.
you or was that on the recording? Like, he's take it out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, part two to that is, what kind of advice would you give somebody that was wanting to start a podcast?
Oof.
Well, number one, it's got to be fun. Like, I think the biggest times of like we don't do something or whatever, it's like we might not have something that we're super excited to record about. If we're excited to record about it or talk about it, like, we're in, and so luckily we both love this music, we love each other, and so we also have the understanding too, like, that our time is crazy, so we'll record when we can, and sometimes I can't do it, and so we just wait, or sometimes Gary can't do it, so we wait. And like, you just have to be able to go with the flow, especially with family, work, and all that stuff, like, and stay up late. Like, that's what we've had to do.
Yeah. And I'd say, like, so most podcasts, they say they fail or they stop like around episode 7 or 9. I don't remember the statistic.
Yeah.
And most of that's because you're looking for validation, and so you look at your play counts and you look at your followers and you start to feel defeated. So we went in thinking no one would listen to us anyway.
Yeah.
And like we were thinking maybe like 50 people, like close friends and family, that were like, hey, we started a podcast and they just want to listen. But most of our friends and family don't like the music we like, and so
they don't even listen.
They're like, no, we're not listening to them.
So, what episode are you on now?
36.
So you blown past that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And do you know how many listeners do you have average?
So on an episode, our average is like 250.
Nice.
But we have a few that have gone up to like 500 or so.
Yeah.
And then that's unique listeners through only Apple Music and Spotify. Who knows what else, other platforms and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have any recommendations except only do it if you really like to do it. And there's no money in podcasts.
There's zero money. Yeah.
Like, you're gonna spend more money.
Yeah.
We luckily have.
Tell that to Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
True.
Okay. That's true. Yeah.
But like, and we say this all the time, like, we decided to do a podcast on the absolute, like, niche, like, Christian heavy music, you know,
But
like
but I think that's what helps makes it successful when you do
for
find it.
sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your target audience. I mean, I know it's Christian like metal that you all are doing, but yeah, have you all like kind of had an idea to like reach out to unsaved people or to like maybe give saved Christian metalheads like music to listen to or both?
For sure. I think the crazy thing is we just assumed it'd be like a bunch of guys in their 30s and 40s or whatever, you know, like that's like what the music, the time, that's probably it. But what's been pretty
What are
cool
you
is
trying
we
to say?
right? I know. And what's been super crazy is that we've got kids in high school to like 60-year-olds, whatever, you know, that are definitely the listening group. And we've actually gone to shows and met some of these people
Oh, that's
that
awesome.
we've met through the podcast. And that's like so awesome. It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, you're kind of like I don't know, the disciple of podcasts. You're there for Christians, but you're also there to proclaim the gospel.
Yeah.
You know, so you can kind of cover all of that.
Yeah, we try to not get too theological or arguing about God.
Right.
And we try not to like make it a Christian podcast, but because we're
It just
Christians,
happens.
it just happens.
Yeah, I mean
And-
that's just your worldview. I mean, that makes
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
so.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, well, so I was going to say, what can the Christian Metal Group do to support you, support your ministry, and to help you?
You want to do it, Tyler?
You know, yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple things to support us for sure. We're on the socials. We try to put out like memes that are like funny or videos and stuff. And
Reels,
it's all
yeah.
reels. It's all Christian metal focused. So follow us on Instagram, especially. We have a Facebook page too. But also like our biggest, like another place we feel we're kind of unique is on Discord.
Mhm.
Able to really just interact daily with like people in not just in Christian metal, talking about life and prayer requests. And we've got a bunch of bands on there and they post stuff on there all the time. So it's pretty cool community that's been built around that.
Awesome. Is Blue Fire Horizon one of those bands?
They are on there.
They
Yeah.
are, yes.
But they
yes.
also have their own Discord, so they're
Yeah,
mostly
of
on that
course.
one. But
Yeah,
yeah, they
that's
have
why
a
I asked.
channel and yeah.
That's why I asked because we've interviewed them and they were talking about that. So the final question, unless Jay's got one, we'll wrap this up. So why is Blue Fire Horizon your favorite band?
No,
And
dude,
then-
all their memes are like, why is Blue Fire Horizon not your favorite band? That's like everything they put out. No, Blue Fire Horizon's cool, man. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, you're good. So what do you have what is one or two newer favorite bands that you have? So like in the last 5 years.
Gary, dial it up, dude.
Put me on the spot. I wish I could have had time to think about this. So some of my favorite up and coming. So Bloodlines.
Oh yeah.
I love the hardcore sound. I like kind of the trap music or electronical pieces they put in there.
Heck yeah.
And they're awesome Christian dudes, and their message and their lyrics are just super awesome. And my second one I'll pick, I guess I'll pick Convictions, although they aren't up and coming. Like I've been listening to them since 2017.
Right.
I guess that's in the range, but
Fairly new, yeah.
Yeah, the new stuff that they're putting out, like that song Stigmata. Oh man, that single just kills me. And I really like just that faith-based focus in the lyrics. Just super blatant. If you played this in public, everyone will look at you and be like, they know it's a Christian song, and it's super heavy, super fun. What about you, Tyler?
Plead the Widow's Cause. I got to throw it out there. They're so awesome, man. Like East Coast post hardcore. If you haven't listened to them, listen. It's like a throwback to like the early 2000s, but they're doing it good and it's spirit filled and it's so awesome.
Hey, that sounds like I mean, so here's wow. So Gary, he mentioned like a band that's kind of does trap music, like it has trap music influences. What kind of music do you all listen to like outside of metal?
Man, I'm all over the place. So I like Need to Breathe kind of stuff, kind of folky. And
Oh.
I like EDM and dubstep and stuff like that.
Need to Breathe are local boys for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Wow, amazing.
For me, I'm a big Swiftie. So
And he's not joking.
Taylor Swift. No, my wife's like crazy huge Taylor Swift fan. So by like proximity, I have now been brainwashed.
Oh, so you got to brainwash her with your music. See,
I do. I for sure do. She
Yeah,
she
it
loves it.
mixes. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Uh,
All right, so this is the last question. The last question of the last question. Okay.
All right.
Very, very quickly, just tell us about what your favorite thing is about being a Christian.
good one.
That's a tough one. I'll go first, Tyler.
Okay.
So I mean, there's several things, but I think from a worldly perspective, having community with other believers, knowing that there's other people out there that believe and follow a God that is bigger than they are. And like immediately, even when you go to churches, it's like you already have so much in common with everyone in that building as soon as you walk in. And being part of the Christian metal scene is an even tighter group.
Mm.
You know, if you see a guy in public walking around with a Christian metal band shirt, you have to say hi, like, love your shirt. And it's like, you like them too? And
Yeah.
you're immediately like really good buddies.
That's friends. Yes.
And so that's a big part of it, is like the earthly community. And of course the heavenly side is that there's a God who forgives me and who has died on the cross for my sins.
Mhm.
But yeah, Tyler, how about you?
I mean, for me, like there's no better comfort than knowing that God loves you, right? Knowing that God died for your sins. That comfort, and then you see like your kids starting to understand that comfort, and it's like, man, like that's huge. And so but I also agree with Gary, like church is it's so crazy because you can get all these people that like absolutely nothing. Like I'm lucky that I found Gary at a campus ministry, because there were dudes in there that hated Christian metal, probably, right? They're like, that's like of the devil or something, right? People that are sports fans, people that are not, people that are, into Lord of the Rings, and people that are not. Like, it's just all these people have different hobbies that can come together under the umbrella of Jesus Christ. And it's so awesome. It's the kind of the opposite of what we see out in the world right today. This like huge division is there's a picture of unity and like what unity should be. And so that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Well, hey man, I appreciate it. I hope this gains you some more listeners for your podcast. Y'all go check out All Consuming Podcasts. I'll put all the links here in this. Y'all have a great day.
See ya.
See ya.